seems to be working. So I'll just be waiting for anyone to jump online. I wanted to do it early, get on this early. I was having trouble um, figuring this out for the last day and a half. So the first set of people would be um, College of the Desert people. If they want to jump on around 1 o'clock, like I said, this is early. I doubt anyone's checking this out, but people can let me know they can hear me, things like that. And again, this is just a test to see if we'll be doing this going forward, which seems doable. Oops, there we go there. Put this over here. So obviously I can manipulate my computer as I'm doing this. If anyone's never done this before, you have to download software, all these things that I was trying to avoid. Remote exams, I don't care what that is. Okay, and then I can bring up this and look at myself in real time as opposed to the delay. So, I don't know. Make that a little smaller. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, hopefully this works. We'll see. I can check my emails, check homeworks, which is what I'm doing. So, here's a stupid email. Might as well read it for myself. Okay, don't care about that one. I figured I wouldn't. Mm. So I'm looking at my COD emails. I don't think anyone's on this right now, but delete this one. Zoom booming is a thing apparently. That's probably why I'm glad I didn't do this. Host only, yeah, this is easier. Even though trying to figure out the online thing is difficult, especially in a time crunch. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of you could probably do this or do it. But yeah, now there's all these issues with the internet slowing down. Zoom is slow because essentially the entire world's using Zoom. I just figured YouTube has the infrastructure and I can respond to questions in real time. So yeah, that's that. I'll leave that homework there. I don't know. So Keelan emailed me. I won't answer the question on the YouTube on the screen. I don't think he's there. Let's see if I can minimize this. Oh, someone's there. Crazy person. Now that we're all digital, I've become more and more of a fan of the emoji. So there you go. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. One, appreciate. It's very helpful. Let's see what this one says. Yeah, the stream quality is not great. So I noticed yesterday that it's sufficient. So I think I gotta go upgrade my Wi-Fi or get a hard line into the computer. But it looks like it's working, so that's good. Yeah, all these things you have to start considering. This digital option is ridiculous. I think in person is better. I know. I think I'm reading the UCR students discussion boards with Dr. Riley. People were like, yeah, like, you know, it's I get a better learning opportunity talking to a person. I agree. Um, I've been arguing with my brother about this. He works at a place where he's more of like an administrator, like a nursing college, and he's like, well, this is the future, and this is just proving it. And I was trying to explain to him that I think, probably most people, there's a, even though it's a relatively few elite people in the world, let alone America, that go to college, I think the people that work in colleges and teach in colleges and are administrators in colleges value um, the in-person back and forth and questions, answers, and critical thinking. When I've had graduate discussions at UC Riverside with students from, I think, Sweden, Japan, Italy, a few other places that they'll come and visit basically and tell about their experiences. Apparently, the American, or at least the Anglophonic, the English-speaking model is somewhat different. So, like Canada, Australia, and England, where you're not supposed to agree with the professors in some sense. I think that's maybe that's a disconnect a lot of times when I do teach in person with students, is that there's oftentimes not a correct answer. There's a position that you take and can defend. So I think that's pretty evident with Dr. Riley's in the UCR class, first post. So he has a very definite worldview. He's not the worst professor at doing that, where he's essentially kind of, these words aren't as negative as they sound, let's say prejudiced, but so you can disagree with Dr. Riley, he's not going to fail you or something like that, but he also makes his views pretty evidently known, whereas I generally, as an ethical position, try to be as neutral as possible, unless a student were to have like a, overtly kind of like hateful view and was voicing that in without a reason, a justifiable reason to another student. I've never had that problem though. So I've been teaching for quite a while. I've been an instructor for 3 years, and it doesn't really happen. I mean, I'm sure it does, but yeah, like that's kind of, I don't know why I got off on a tangent. I'm just practicing, I guess. So I see Ashley was on here or is on here, so thanks for helping me, Ashley. I appreciate it. We could probably do participation this way, where people could have their names or um, tell me their names if they have a different username, and I could do credit that way. But again, I don't think that's fair and necessary. Thank you for continuing to comment. Again, you don't have to watch this. The test is sufficient. I'm going to talk about College of the Desert stuff for a while, and then I think I'll get to UC Riverside stuff around 2 o'clock. So I'm just going to be here. This first half hour is just working out the bugs, so I'm not going to go anywhere. Hopefully my internet doesn't break. Yeah, you are. I think you are. But I know the reason why I'm talking in a peculiar fashion is because apparently this will record, and then I can post it later for other students. And so actually that's kind of the benefit of the digital stuff as opposed to like Zooming or other things. It's like usually when people do online classes, I don't know if you've ever done one before, you can just access the material whenever you want. So a lot of times students are working, or they need accommodations, or they just can't do a normal class and get to the class. And so the online platform generally is designed on all these different features. It's just like, well, I can access the material when I'm able to. And so a lot of times when people do online classes, my friend Raul just did one where, you can speed through the material as fast as you want. So I'm just texting people right now. And so that's kind of cool. So you can get done, you could have a 16-week or 10-week course in a quarter system, and you could get done as fast as you can get the work done. So give yourself a time off. So like I said, Ashley, if you want to jump off, you're more than welcome to. I'll just write your name down. in case you need brownie points for anything in the future. I'm like, hey, actually help me. So, you know, maybe I'll throw her a brownie point on this paper or something like that. And obviously, if you were to email me um, through UC Riverside as our email, that I'll post again and remind me, I wouldn't forget. So, yeah, that's it. So, I'll be on for a while, but again, you don't have to hang out if you don't want to. This is definitely weird. I'll tell you that. It says 2 people are watching. I think the other one's me, but I don't know. So, for you're still there, I'm just going to be like getting my stuff in order and my notes. We're going to be talking about de Tocqueville, and so I'm basically treating this like a recorded discussion too. So the next thing up is teaching a class at College of the Desert, and we're on Alexis de Tocqueville, who basically talks about America. It might be interesting for a world politics student because I think some of the observations de Tocqueville had about America in the early 1800s. So de Tocqueville was a French national traveling America, and he basically had these observations about American institutions and American culture that, again, my other class did a really good job. I basically had them criticize de Tocqueville and like, are these views true? And I got some really good responses. I tried to answer those people when I could, but yeah, so now I'm checking out my emails. So I have that. De Tocqueville notes, that's what I need. My hair is pretty ridiculous at the moment. Pull these out. Yeah, patriotism, all this good stuff. Anyways, what was I saying? So yeah, this actually is kind of more emblematic of how I teach. I get confused. I don't know what's going on. I can't keep track. And so with the recordings, I have a set thing and I go through in a linear fashion. But one of the big critiques I have in person is that I kind of bounce around. And it's not just from example to example. I just bounce around. My brain kind of works in this kind of impromptu fashion. So there's definitely better lectures. I've taught with Dr. Riley before, so I actually think that this format's actually better for him too, because I think, not to be mean, but he's definitely on the more boring side. Yeah, so that was my sister. I saw a picture. She posted a thing with her and her son on the computer, so I figured they could just test it because I didn't know if anyone was actually going to jump on. So, yeah, so the lighting in my house is terrible. I have my windows open, so now all my neighbors can see me. So that's that's uncomfortable. And then the lighting in my house is pretty poor, anyways. I have a light right here, but I feel like it makes my face turn orange. It's hard to see. And yeah, so this is pretty janky. Like, my computer's older. It's an Air, so even now the MacBook Pros are equivalent to the Air. Thanks, Kay. So it's like a 5-second delay. Stevie helped me yesterday, my brother Steve. And yeah, so everything about this is like not good, but I think it works. So again, if people were to jump online and ask questions, then I could respond to these things in real time. Yeah, janky, but it works. Yeah, I agree. It's not the best, but some of us don't have that occupational therapist money. So I was explaining why it's janky. Now I'm all self-conscious. Let's see. I'll try and answer some emails. Maybe I'll put some music on so it's less boring. This just sucks. It's just like TV. Now I gotta find non-offensive music. I don't know if it's gonna ruin the sound. Let's see here. Do my music. Yeah, it's like super janky, okay? Because I'm using external sound. I could probably figure out a way to stream it live through the computer as I'm talking, but I don't know what I'm doing. I literally learned how to do this yesterday. If you're even there anymore, which you're probably not. You're probably busy being an adult. Curious about whether it was official as far as. So I'm responding to emails, in case anyone's curious. I don't even know if you can hear this or not. Probably not. I don't know. I'm gonna check it. Yeah, that's fine. If you have to jump off, that's fine. Again, it's not for credit. Um, yeah, see, fine. Okay, thanks, Kaylee. Yeah, that's supposed to be janky on purpose. It makes me laugh. I'll send you the other video I have of. I think I sent you the picture of Big Bird, but where I have Big Bird hiding in the corner. But I don't have Big Bird. That's your illustrious son's toy. But yeah, I just do these things to make myself laugh. This whole situation is janky, and yeah, that's just the future now. This is what the future looks like. Coronavirus. Yeah, of course, the student emails me a perfect question I can just talk about, but I'll try and respond with an email quickly so I can get back to doing nothing. To answer your question, I know it's shaking. questions? Yep, I'll be on until at least 2 o'clock. So if anyone's other watching this, I think it tells me who's on. One of these things does. I think it's this one. Can I refresh it maybe? No? Oh, there it goes. Still says there's a couple people there. Okay. I'm live. Oh, it's scary. Yeah. It's janky. Your face is janky. I'll turn the music off in a minute when I actually have something to say, which I will in 10 minutes-ish. Start checking my de Tocqueville responses. Again, the students that did those, they were really, really good. I tried to comment all day yesterday as I was learning how to do live streaming, which again, I know I'm not particularly good at. I'm just stoked it seems to be working from checking my own phone and people that have checked in with me either on my phone or through the chat window, chat box on this. Yeah, I got TV on over here, and I got the stupid music, and then I got this. I'm thinking about what I have to do later, which is get chapter 11 out of about the Congress out to everybody. So if anyone is, because I think you can rewind it too. I think you can go back to see what I was talking about earlier. So if anyone from the intro class who would jump on around 12:30 or excuse me 1:30 is on, then what I'll do during your session is talk about should money constitute free speech. So we had a homework it's due today. I'll start grading those tonight, but we can talk about it. I'll run through the questions myself, and so it's okay if you haven't done the homework and I talk about a point you were going to talk about in the homework. It's totally fine. Take your regards to science. Wanted to do something in academia or you'll want to learn to take sometimes called econometrics, right, student. So I guess I won't say the student's name, but I guess I can talk about this since it'll help me write this email faster. So a student was asking me if they were trying to go into political science and their email's somewhat vague. Like what are some of the best classes to take? And then they asked me, which is kind of funny, not because it's a silly question, it's a great question, it's because I'm not your typical political scientist. The UCR class is more, I guess, sort of an international relations class, which is what I've also studied at UC Riverside, and I'm really a political philosopher. And the reason why those two things kind of go together is because, as we'll see for the UCR students, a lot of these kind of issues with regards to human rights or state power is not measurable in a particular fashion. Like you can see an event, oh, we went to war or this person died, but how and why actors act, whether they're states or leaders, political leaders, it's really kind of like philosophy. It's like, well, so again, I think with Dr. Riley's kind of take, he's not a particularly big Trump fan, because he's evaluating it through his personal moral spectrum, which is right or wrong. So you have that analysis, and then the outcomes with which he teaches to you all. So again, it's okay to question what he says. You just have to kind of like know what he says and know what the book is saying. You don't have to agree with him. I know I don't. I know there were several things on the PDF that he put out that I was like, this is kind of silly. But that's neither here nor there. Because you're all expected at the college level, whether it's at a junior college or a UC, is to think for yourself. And I think that's the thing that I think comes with experience. I guess getting a little older and a little more confidence in ourselves. That oftentimes it's not students, it's people. People do not do, and then you learn something, and then you go, oh, that's true. Like I learned it. My professor told me that. My teacher told me that. My parents told me that. My pastor told me that. Yeah, I mean, they could be telling you something that's true, but in American liberal democratic society, the institutional setup is for you as an individual to think for yourself, and you have to, you know, challenge kind of like your genetics and your psychology and your groupthink, and it's hard, and we all fail. And even though I like to pretend like I'm some kind of paragon of virtue with regards to thinking critically, I'm not. So you always just have to kind of have this humility going forward that, yeah, I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. I feel like I'm. I think you usually know if you're getting close on the wrong edge of things if you go like, well, I feel like I'm right, because that means it's like, well, there's an absence of an argument. And I think good analytical thought, again, I'm more of this philosopher, is going to be based on, here are my reasons, here's my evidence. Usually evidence is empirical, usually it's in the world, but again, not always. And so I think like a world politics class is perfect to demonstrate how mushy these things are, because you can observe the same event and it's real in that sense. A war happened, a killing happened, or this amazing peaceful act happened, but like people are going to have different interpretations of that event. It was a good thing, it was a bad thing, right? President Obama was a good president, President Obama was a bad president, President Trump's a good president, President Trump's a bad president. They're probably both somewhere in the middle, but how do you make these judgment calls, these subjective judgment calls? You're going to give arguments, but they're going to be different than something like a hard science or a proper empirical science, like say physics. You have the math, you have the observable phenomenon, it's repeatable, right? So if I throw something up in the air, like this is predictable. For those of you who are perhaps better at math, like the math can describe the action of that, momentum, inertia, friction, gravity. But was going to war in Afghanistan the correct thing to do or a good thing to do? Those are actually two different questions, and I don't know, like, I wouldn't have any kind of semblance of a really poor, not very high paying job if those questions were very directly answerable, right? So yeah. I guess we're Mario Brothers and in class at the same time. Yes, Lupita, you're probably my favorite student. I cannot recall what your Canvas post was right now. I'm going to go check that after I finish this email, but I remember it was really good. So thanks for playing Mario. I wish I was playing Mario too. Yeah. I understand what you wrote now. Quarantinizing. Yeah, I'm freaking out because like usually my neighbors' garages aren't open and they're right on the other side, and they're just staring at me talk to myself. I'll look back here. Something called econometrics. Yeah, so was I back talking to you about political science? Yeah, so if you're going to do political science proper, it depends on what you're going to do. Most of us are just getting degrees, and a lot of jobs just want you to have a 4-year degree, so it actually doesn't matter what it's in. That's a terrible way of behaving. So hopefully a lot of you are thinking like, oh, what am I going to get this degree for if I'm a poli-sci person? Yeah, so this person's again asking me like, what do I do with political science? And I basically said, well, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to get a job in poli-sci, so even last semester, I had a student who was trying to get into the foreign service department or the State Department. So it seemed like having a political science base was useful. So again, you just got to think about the job. And so what I'm saying here is like, if you want to do what I'm doing, you could just, you just read books. You just go, If you want to be a real political scientist, then you basically have to become an expert in statistics. So my friend Sono just finished. I just saw a post, and I guess there are people better than him, but for where I'm standing, he's one of the best around. And I mean that with regards to statistics and analyzing this data and analyzing these events. It's kind of similar to baseball in a lot of sense, or these statistics. And so when you're doing these things, they're called econometrics. Sometimes this is called econometrics. Economic classes. Economy. Yeah, so it's basically economics is kind of like the queen of the social sciences, and then probably psychology and political science argue for like who's the princess, and then after that's probably sociology or anthropology, and all that means is like the importance, the things they're talking about, their ability to kind of get money from the world, to justify people like me just sitting here studying things without making any product or helping the world get better. And so, yeah, econometrics is basically like this advanced statistical way of looking at the world. It sounds really complicated. It's difficult to master. I think most of you probably have done some stats. All these kind of coronavirus things are statistics. Well, these are our projections. This many people have it. These many people have died. This is what do we expect to happen. The data that they're coming in to make those stats, or like the testing that they're doing with these swabs in people's noses. And yeah, so the economics as a field does that. They study the economy, right? So the GDP, how much money people are making, how many jobs. Political science does this. The data that they use to make models, statistical models, are how people vote, when they voted, how many people respond to surveys, how many people do this or that. And again, I think psychology is the other big kind of econometrics issue. But again, they're looking more at like human behavior. What's the average age a child learns how to talk? That might tell you something about their psychology, like in the things that impact this human behavior of speaking. If they have a really scary home and the parents yell at them, maybe they don't talk until they're 2. And if they have like a loving household, maybe they start talking when they're 1. I made that up. Seems reasonable. Also use these methods. Yeah, so it's usually called the methods. When you're learning stats, you're learning methods, and there's just like the litany of different ways of like getting to information. You want to know how people's attitudes and beliefs change over time. So these things are called like a time series study, where you're taking data, and it's not like about one particular event. It's kind of about things happening over time. So you can do like elections, right? So this many people from this community voted in this election, and then you try and find a variable that describes perhaps a change in voting behavior. Like perhaps in the future, more left-handed people will vote for Republicans, and you're like, well, why do left-handed people vote for Republicans? I don't know. And then you try and figure that out. The danger is with a lot of these things is that I think, and then why I do more political philosophy, is that people try to ascribe judgment. I wish you generated closed captions. In one sentence, what's the meaning of life? Thanks, Aaron. One sentence. The meaning of life. Oh, I can't. I have nothing good. I have nothing witty to say because I'm still trying to finish this stupid email. Give me a second. I think my initial reaction would be the meaning of life is to chill. That would be my meaning of life. So don't stress. You're reasonably set. You achieve if you want to achieve. You don't achieve. You're very dude. That's what I will say. The meaning of life is to chill. That's a terrible answer. It's not very zen, but that's what we'll go with. Let's see. It's 1 o'clock. Okay, let me finish this email. The economic psychology also use these methods. Yeah, the closed captioning, I'm assuming because you're playing the game or because I'm not speaking clearly. So let me know, Lupita, and I'll try and at least speak more clearly so you can hear me better. I know the speakers on my computer also aren't too chilly red hot. So economics these methods. So you might want to take those kinds of courses to going forward. Okay, that's all I got for now. Sorry, bud. Not a good email, but it'll work. And I have another thing here. YouTube. I'm live apparently. Okay, I'll minimize that. All should pray. Yeah. So, yeah, this is strange. This is definitely a difficult setup because I'm trying to look at things, email things, and respond to this chat box. So, Aaron, I appreciate the question, and Lupita that you're there. And I'm trying to verify if there's any people here. There's 4 people watching now, it says. Um, yeah, the meaning of life is different for everyone, Aaron. So, that was what I would say too. It's whatever you want it to be. It's like one of those questions that people assume is very philosophical. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Just hang out with my grandma. Just, you know, you get a different perspective when you're older than when you're younger. Um, People value different things. Like I'm definitely much more of a difficult person, I suppose. So, well, since Lupita and Aaron seem to be here, and again, anyone else from the the PS3 political theory philosophy class, let me know if you're in the chat. I wanted to, yeah. So Aaron, like, I mean, a lot of your, I really, really appreciate the thoughtful, both of you guys, Lupita and Aaron, the thoughtful responses. Like I said, I tried to respond to you all as best I could, but I gave up around 9:30 yesterday. So I mean, Jesus had a good response, and I was joking around a little bit, and I think I was comfortable doing that because you all have because for those of you at College at Desert, you actually know me and know my actual sense of humor, like my sister and the puppy. With the UCR students, I'm going to be a little more conservative just because, when people don't know your sense of humor or can't see you kind of do a cheeky smile, then they might take it seriously and then, get offended. And I'm not trying to get fired. So let me try. I just wanted to find Lupita's comment because I think if I'm recalling, I should have written this down yesterday. I thought about it. But I think hers was, where is it? Here. Yeah, Lupita, I just thought this was really good. So you were responding to, I think, Ashley Vegas point, and you said, so she was talking about how, so Ashley was talking about, I thought this was good. I thought it showed you all read. It wasn't difficult reading. But I thought Ashley had this point with regards to this observation of de Tocqueville that America seems to not have these kind of like, at least powerful in the form of a European warfare state as an enemy. And this is oftentimes been, it's probably true of Canada too, and even Mexico, that we have these oceans between us and the rest of the world, and it's provided us with some kind of protections. And so this has allowed essentially kind of like this American values to kind of grow and flourish because I think she had it here. America has no large capital whose direct or indirect influence is felt over, this is Ashley's, over the whole extent of the territory. I consider this one of the first causes of maintaining a republic. A new, more democratic freedom was formed. And I like how she explained her answers too. Formed, inputting, and the governing for the general welfare being in order to prevent misery at all. And again, that also for the intro students, I mean, not having one big powerful capital, because America was a country a while before Washington, D.C. was a city. That's one of the benefits of federalism, that each state kind of has its own capital, and they're not beholden to like a central authority. Whereas, say, take somewhere like England, or even Mexico in Mexico City, and London in the case of England, it's like much of the political power is just kind of like sucked up in those areas. And it seems like America is missing that. And that's institutionally kind of codified through federalism, where there's a lot of emphasis on states' rights. And again, we're seeing this with coronavirus, where the states are organizing their response to the virus, which is slightly different than, say, New York and Washington and California. And then they're petitioning the federal government for the necessary resources and aid that they might need. And there's difficulty because the federal government's responsible for the entire country, all 50 states and all the territories. But the governor of New York only cares about the people of New York and New York City. So that would inherently cause animosity, because generally it's the other way around, where the federal government's irritated at a state. But now, because of this kind of emergency, if you notice, like, it's the other way around. And so I think one of the best ways of seeing that is the relationship between, say, Gavin Newsom, our governor in California, and the federal government. Trump has noted, and Gavin Newsom's noted, they generally don't get along. But now, because they kind of need each other, their relationships better. And they both kind of praise each other to the extent that they can because they're both different political parties. Yeah, and so Lupita, your point was basically like, yeah, America can't really be considered a sanctuary anymore. It's modern warfare, although war has not touched U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor and perhaps 9/11 in 2001, the terrorist attacks. Um, those same technology advancements may enable rivaling powers to conduct precise and devastating attacks. Yeah, I really liked your answer. I just thought that was incredibly insightful. And so you talked about cyber warfare, which is kind of like this new and developing type of consideration. So again, people who study international relations really don't know how to deal with cyber warfare or account for it. People try. My friend Rick Crespo, if he hasn't emailed me back, but if he wants to talk to us on say Friday, if I do another video, I probably won't do a live stream. He's much more of an expert on that. It's not exactly cyber warfare, but his dissertation was about monetary warfare, where countries attack each other's money. So again, I think that would also back up your point. And then since we're all a little bit younger, and you guys are definitely younger than me, and I added to your observation that I thought that like nuclear war or ballistic missiles also and so that basically, I think it even backs your point up more, Lupita, because that's been a reality for the last 40 or 50 years, where you don't have to have an invasion, but America is definitely under this kind of threat, and so that's a good argument, I think, against de Tocqueville and how his point doesn't seem to hold true anymore. And then it looks like Ashley responded to that. It's not exactly about being a sanctuary, and yes, technology does make it easier to overcome. In terms of comparing, and I'm just reading the stuff on Canvas. So again, if you don't have access to Canvas, then this probably doesn't make sense. If there are any UCR people still on, you're welcome to ask questions about this other material. So again, I'm just doing this. I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm just trying to figure out this technology to kind of make everyone's life a little bit better. Mine too, and plus now I have another skill. Once I actually figure out, it seems like there's a lot of things you can do in this live streaming software, but I just don't have time to do it. I'm trying to get all this class material posted. All my notes are here. I'm sorry, let's see. It's not exactly about being a sanctuary. Yes, technology. Middle East, for example, there are tensions between countries like Egypt and Israel. The U.S. has had and continues to pay both countries to cool tensions. There are countless examples of this in other compacted continents. Two nations near each other, despising one another. Yet this is something the U.S. could experience at the same level. Yes, you can compare this to the tension with Mexico, but it's nowhere near as harsh. I agree with Ashley 100%. Speaking of economic warfare, in World War II, the Nazi government planned on dropping millions of counterfeit British banknotes over England to inflate their currency. Yeah, Aaron, I'm stoked that you kind of have this historical base. Again, you might like my friend Rick. I can give him your email if you're interested. I know, well, you are interested in this stuff. That was actually wild. Yeah, and so a name, Aaron. I meant to say this to you when you were doing your letters of rec. There's a gentleman at USC. Depending on how far, you don't have to be a political scientist, but it might be a good contact. Academics generally are a lot nicer than people think, and so you don't have to even know a person or go to their school for them to help you or anything like that. And so he's Canadian. It's just an aside, but his name's Patrick James, and so I can send you his information. You can look it up, but if you ever have international relations questions, he's actually, I didn't even know this. That's how dumb I am. He's actually one of the biggest deals in the field of international relations, and he's in Southern California. And so he's a really influential political scientist. And so if you ever have questions, you could probably email him out of the blue. Probably not right now with all this stuff going on. He's really actually focused on teaching, but he could answer questions you might have, because it seems to me like your base of interest is pretty wide sweeping. Yeah, and so again, back to Ashley's point on the homework or the responses. Again, I'll have to grade a lot of these. Let me give her a like. Yeah, there is something that's also true with Ashley's observation that America really does have a positive relationship with Mexico. The immigration's an issue, but we're not enemies. I don't think the American and Mexican governments despise each other or are trying to undermine each other, right? We just kind of have this economic tension, and we generally, with regards to extra legal immigration, like both countries profit from one another quite a bit. So again, what people will generally say, particularly with the relationship with Canada, is like it's like the biggest. It's like a 3,000-mile long border, and there's no kind of like fencing there. So it's like the non-enforced border in the entire world. Or I'm getting it wrong. And so we definitely have a special relationship with Canada. And again, like most of the southern border is not walled off either. And Trump wants a wall to save money, I guess. I mean, whatever the argument is, but it's not really like as a seeing the Mexican government or people from the Central America as enemies. It's an economic concern, and again, every country in the world that's a country has borders. And so I've gotten in arguments. There was a woman from UCLA, a grad student, who talked about the southern border. She was Mexican American. A lot of people who are very much influenced by that type of interest would say something like, well, people on the southern border, the border patrol is militarized, that this is a negative thing. They wear vests and have machine guns, and yeah, but there's a reason, right? Like it's not because they're scared of Mexican people who are crossing the border to work. It's because there's cartels and they have killed border patrol officers, and so it's not you can do this kind of arguments all day, and I think my view is more reasonable, but obviously I would think my view is more reasonable. I'm always right, so I could be wrong, but my response to her question was like this militarization of the border. I've only crossed the southern border once, but I know San Ysidro, like past San Diego, is like one of the biggest crossings. It's very difficult. There's barbed wires, just a lot of traffic is what I mean by difficult. And I guess the look of militarization is a problem for some people. And what I told her was, well, the border between North and South Korea is has a million landmines under the ground, but it's apparently beautiful. Like it's a nature preserve because no one goes there. And so you couldn't say it's been more, it doesn't look militarized. It's a nature preserve. But we know there's landmines under the ground, and we know when people have tried to cross, the North Koreans just shoot them. You're usually trying to cross out of North Korea. They're not coming in. So yeah, like that seems like much more of an issue than compared to the American border. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just biased against North Korea. So I don't know. Oh, you just got your home. Thanks, man. Okay, I'll look at some other stuff. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Let me see if my face actually is in this thing. Okay, ask me a question. Yeah. So this is still on Ashley's point. Like I said, I'll go back and grade these properly. It says Idris put, the U.S. is just as vulnerable as its neighbors and world powers because of the technological advances that have been made and the new types of warfare being made. Today's countries have to worry about biological, chemical, cyber warfare. Yeah, so I think Idris is on the same point as me. I should have read your question first, bud. I don't think you're probably not there, but you should read Ship of Fools. It covers a lot about what you were just talking about. Yeah, I'll make a note of it. If I had a proper camera, I could show you all the books I have laying everywhere. Grab some. There's a book. Habermas. There's more. So I don't get to read for fun as much as I would like. Even if it's intellectual stuff, that is to say, I just read things for my dissertation because I'm so far behind and got to get that done. Hence the live streaming. I think maybe if I can do this on occasion, that like talking about de Tocqueville, that I'm basically also getting a video out to everyone if they want to tune in and listen at the same time. And then we don't have to worry about waiting for a proper post, if that makes sense. But those will be forthcoming. I'll do the normal posts for everyone again. The reality of writing a dissertation. Yeah, it sucks. So when you guys are freaking out about a 300 word, 600 word paper thing where I'm just like, yeah, just give me your thoughts. I don't care. The dissertation is difficult, so it's taking me a while to kind of get my head around. Again, I have friends are done. My friend Rick, who I was talking about, he finished a year ahead of me. I'm basically like taking way too long. I'll be like a ninth year, and that's actually not unusual. But and again, if you think about doing academia, you can get done a lot faster. My friend Kendra got done like in 5 years or 6 years. So part of slowing down is having to teach, but you get the experience. So like your guys' class technically slows me down, but it's also a great experience. So it just is what it is. When you go to different places, they have different expectations. So like if you were, I make fun of my cousin Ashley, but at Harvard, you're just not you're going to have the economic backing from the school. And usually those people are better off anyways, and she is than me anyways. But, to pay for housing, to pay for food. And so you can just work and you don't have to teach. And so that would help me go faster. But it's fun. Like if I could pull this off and make it a proper living, which I'm qualified to do. Like I said, I do have 2 master's degrees. So I am qualified to teach at a college level. But the PhD, gives you a little more money and gives you more job opportunities to teach at, like, say, the Cal States or the UCs. And you have to publish. And so the dissertation is supposed to be good enough to be a publication. That might be one way of helping you understand how good it's supposed to be, or the level of intellectual standard. But that's not to say it's hard or you guys couldn't do it. I think anyone in our class, particularly the people that are on here right now, could do it. It's just time. And so what's actually the most challenging part of it is now those parts of the writings that I have to be original, like have my own thoughts. That's actually really, really hard. And so the dissertation is really just, so I'm writing about religion and politics, and basically what I'm doing is I'm summarizing or giving the positions of these famous philosophers. Jürgen Habermas, John Rawls is American, Habermas is German, and Charles Taylor, who's Canadian. And they all have these kind of distinct views on regards to religion and politics. And I go, well, here's this view, and this is why it doesn't work. Who am I? These are like some of the most famous philosophers that have lived in the last 100 years. So it's already kind of silly in itself, where it's just like, hey, this guy from San Bernardino is gonna tell us what's wrong. And John Rawls has passed away, but yeah, so it's kind of silly on the face of it, the exercise. But I summarize their views. I kind of try and find critiques. But there's already people who have similar critiques, so on some of them I'm just borrowing them, and you try and cite, and you basically just try and demonstrate through a dissertation that you've done all this literature and reading, which I think at this point I've done enough. I feel comfortable doing it, although my advisor was like, you should have had this done, a year ago. And then the really hard part is that, like, towards the end, so like you have basically like 4 or 5 30-page chapters, if that double space time, in the way you guys would think about it. So you want to be around, like, say, 150 pages or more. I've seen dissertations that are longer. I think my friend Kendra's was a little bit shorter. I think hers was like around 120, maybe 110 pages. So, you get over 100 pages of your own kind of thoughts, and then, you write your own kind of thought. And then, hopefully you can get these things published as articles or turn it into a book. Some people do. And then I doubt any of that stuff happens for me. Like, I don't think I have the chops to be elite, but who knows? I might get lucky. I worked on an article, and I met a guy last year, and he was like, "Oh, I'll read it. I'll look to see if it's good." And he emailed me back, "This is trash, and you should throw yourself in the dumpster." So I cried for a couple hours, and then I put that video up of Oscar the Grouch. So it's basically what it's like. So just imagine writing your 600-word papers times 1,000,000 for a couple years. That's what it's like. Okay, sorry. biological, back to Idris's point. Also, as far as prevention of pandemics, the U.S. is a culture and diverse country, and the bigger the country, to a higher chance of possible viruses spread. We're seeing now. Yeah, Idris's point. Yeah, so I think a lot of you are focusing on the reality of um, coronavirus, this new pandemic. You know, I don't know if the government's handled this well or poorly, but I think one of the things that was funny, again, I'm not necessarily against President Trump, um, is that he said no one's ever thought of this before, right? And there's like a bunch of movies and books about pandemics, so clearly someone thought about it, but no one probably in positions of power had thought about these issues before. So write a book or share some articles of writings online. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe you, Aaron, you probably know how to do that. You could show me how to do that. I don't know. I don't know. No one wants to hear what I have to say. Plus, it's one thing to do it online, but like you can go online and find professors talking about it. But for whatever reason you want to get things into a journal, it's because it's more prestigious, and so getting like if you were to get even if someone were to publish your book, like I don't know, a big publishing house, say Penguin Books, that wouldn't look as good with regards to intellectual thought as say Harvard Press or Oxford Press, because those are associated with those universities, if that makes sense. So I think Berkeley has one and Stanford has one, and so yeah. Yeah. I won't comment on the last set of comments since only two of you attacking each other. But yeah, I think Idris's comment here is really good on the homework. I wish I could do what I did before, where on the other streaming I could show you guys the things. But if you have Canvas open, you can look at it for yourself. So now I'm at Maria's point. It's kind of long, and then it looks like Viviana responded and Elizabeth responded. We. So I'll do this for a few more minutes, you guys, and then you can jump off it when I finish, because I'm sure you don't want to hear about the intro stuff. But I really, really appreciate Aaron and Lupita, you guys jumping on, because, like I said, it's a test to see if this works. And then you can email me later, or we could even set up phone calls, and you could tell me if you think I should do something better, or if the sound was bad, or the lighting was bad. And I can try and fix these things. I know my hair is pretty ridiculous, but I'm very proud of my background on my stream. So, yeah, thank you. Lupita, yeah, thank you. Okay, so it says from Maria, chapter 14. Seems fine. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I thought your comment was good, Idris. I agree with you. I thought that was really insightful. Let's see. Democracy creates advantages for society. Yeah, my brother works at a place where he knows how to do this, and he basically was like, maybe green screening for live, but apparently he was telling me, if I was just, so right here's a flat white wall. He's like, you can put a lot of the images and things there. So maybe, yeah, I'll learn this stuff, but I don't have enough time right now. Like I said, I'm trying to get you guys material, and then now I have the UCR kids, adults. You guys aren't kids, and then I got to get back to my dissertation before I get yelled at. So yeah, it sucks for me, because the guy teaching. So I'm a TA over at Riverside, and the guy teaching that class is way worse with technology than me. I think he's in his 70s, and so it's like I'm trying to avoid having to do his work for him. Anyways, in regards to democracy, de Tocqueville believes the following: democratic laws generally tend to promote the welfare of the greatest possible number, for they emanate from the majority of citizens who are subject to error, but who cannot have an interest opposed to their own advantage. I mean, that even sounds French and Republican. That just sounds Rousseauian to me. Again, technically Rousseau wasn't French. He was Swiss, but he was French-Swiss, and I just always consider him French. The laws of the aristocracy tend, on the contrary, to concentrate wealth and power in the hands of the minority, because an aristocracy, by its very nature, constitutes a minority. It may, therefore, be asserted as a general proposition that the purpose of a democracy in the conduct of its legislation is useful to a greater number of citizens than Aristotle. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so talking about democracy. De Tocqueville's definitions are pertinent to describing today's political world and how far from a democracy we are shifting. Again, I think Jesus had some elements of this in his. I haven't finished Maria's point, but Jesus was talking about how, in one of his comments that I commented back, that America is not democratic. I think that's fair. I think I had that intuition when I read de Tocqueville as well. But he mentioned the Electoral College and Trump, and so America is not meant to be a direct democracy. It's not supposed to be on popular vote with regards to the president, right? So when we vote for a congressperson or a senator, it's popular vote. But even the Senate has changed. And again, a lot of you who did intro classes should know that the Senate used to be the federal Senate used to be appointed by the state legislatures, right? So it was it was a step away from the people in that democratic process. So we voted for the people who voted for the federal senator, and that's basically how we do the Supreme Court. We vote for the people, the president, who picks the nominee for the Supreme Court, and then we vote for the people that confer the votes for the Supreme Court nominee. So it's meant to be less democratic. It's still democratic because voting is occurring, right? But it's less democratic. It's away from the will of the people. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about, see, I'm already starting the lecture, I'm getting more comfortable, is that you should be able to make these connections with Mill. So all these things are things that Mill was aware of because all of these American things were prior to Mill writing. And so I don't know all of the history, but I would assume that Mill, John Stuart Mill, had read de Tocqueville and his views on America. And then obviously Mill, leading into our African American thinkers, would have been critical of the American country because of like our continuance of slavery, right? So I know England ended slavery, even though they had slavery before the United States did. So really that tyranny of the government, and again, the papers that I have that people did were really good. I think almost everyone technically got extra credit for the most part. And so, yeah, like really, if you owe me a paper, if there's someone who owes me a paper, like get that in, please. Like you're going to get marked down, but it's better than getting no points. But there's 6 people watching now. One of them is probably me. But yeah, like I really like the homeworks. Again, maybe it's because I liked the marks in the Mill. It looked like you all looked at those videos for the most part. But yeah, it looked like most of you watched the first one the most because it gives me all these metrics online. But I don't know. I thought the papers were good. I think you guys all got basically the difference between the tyranny and the majority. Sorry, can you please go over Mill again? Are you serious? I can go over Mill, I guess. So, well, John Stuart Mill is liberal, right? He's focused on the autonomy of the individual, so I have the notes online. And so it relates to de Tocqueville because I think a lot of the things that he's talking about, de Tocqueville, in terms of democracy, right? So democracy means ruled by the people, and we generally think of it as the majority, 50% plus 1. And the American system is very much a liberal system in the way that Mill is thinking about it, even though Mill's writing after the Declaration of Independence and the establishment of the U.S. as a country, as an independent country. And so this fear that Madison and these Federalist Papers that you all have to read had for the Poli-Sci 3 class, political theory, is what I say, 10 and 51 or something like that. And so it's basically talking about the tyranny of groups, the tyranny of the majority. And so Mill was very much against that, right? So he wanted the free marketplace of ideas. So again, he would have been in favor probably of permitting hate speech that we think of today, because who determines what hate speech is, right? So we know racial slurs, that's an obvious hate speech, but what if I'm using it as a way of describing the past, right? So you have to take context into account, right? So the famous example is like when people want to censor Mark Twain's books, Huckleberry Finn, because it has the N-word in it, which I can't even say and feel comfortable because I'm being recorded, but I'm not calling someone the racial slur. Why? Yeah, so like Mill would be against me even saying the N-word because I should be able to express this important kind of historical document that's not oppressing Black Americans. It's a snapshot in time, and that's so again you can Google people trying to censor Mark Twain's works. Yeah, so Mill is basically kind of for this kind of people challenging each other, having different ideas, protecting the individual person, because the smallest minority you can have is the minority of one, if that makes sense. And so uh, we have kind of these social justice movements, and I think that's something that they miss because they go, well, I'm a marginalized group, and there's less of us. We're a numerical minority because we're homosexual or because we're Latino Americans, right? We're not the most. We don't comprise the majority of the country, but the American Foundation was aware of what Madison called factions. So if you read the Federalist Paper 10, and then Mill was aware of, again, the tyranny of the majority, which is in the readings and the notes I provided about. It doesn't have to actually be the majority; it could just be the most vocal, right? So you get this kind of like very skewed discussion from very like powerful elites on, say, Twitter, and these are essentially like, people in the media and celebrities who have a very biased view, and they're essentially loud and we pay attention, but that's not what Americans on average think, or people around the world think, right? Just these very few people that are active on Twitter. And I don't know about you, but I don't need to take political or ethical lessons from an athlete that either didn't go to college, and if they did, they probably just got passed through because they were good at dribbling a basketball or throwing a football or hitting a baseball, right? Like, I've been doing this. I have these degrees. I think about these things all day in my cold, dirty house, and I'm more qualified to talk about this stuff, but no one listens to me, right? And so even you all in this class are more qualified to talk about a lot of these issues because of that you're thinking about them and you have these papers. And so that's kind of the tyranny of the majority. Like, why do people care more about what Taylor Swift has to say than you, right? Like, a person who's a millionaire when they're 15 versus a working hard person at a college in Palm Desert. Like, to me, you're a more valuable person than her, but she has 100 million people on Instagram or whatever, right? So that's kind of this kind of complicated way of thinking about the tyranny of the majority. I don't know, Maria, if that answers your question or not. You can keep asking questions or asking me to clarify. I'm just gonna do more of these de Tocqueville things for a few more minutes, and then I'll transition into the intro to government homework. So again, Idris and Lupita, if you're still there, and Aaron, you guys can jump off pretty soon if you want to. You're more than welcome just to hang out. Give me a hard time. Q and email me. He's like, man, I don't get to give you a hard time anymore. He's my intro class. Like, you can give me a hard time. Feel free to attack me. Make fun of my hair. And my sister already made fun of my sign here. So let's see. De Tocqueville's definition. Yeah, so it's not okay. Going back a second, are pertinent to describing today's political world and how far democracy we are shifting. So again, we're not really a democracy. I know I should look into Zoom, but I don't know. I barely figured this out. Like I said, I'm just working on this stuff, but I will. I think once I get caught up, I know our spring break is next week, I think. Then maybe over that spring break, I can learn how to do Zoom, and we can do maybe a live lecture. And I would probably only do it for your guys' class. Yeah, typing is meh. So I guess on Zoom, Lupita, you would just be able to talk, and I could unmute you, and you could ask me a question. I think that's how it works. Yeah, I agree. That would be better, like a virtual kind of lecturing class. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you know more than I do, Lupita. But it would only work with your guys' class because you're a smaller class, and even the people that don't really pay attention, like whenever I've called on people in your guys' class, and we, like a few of us are always on our phone, those people answer. Yeah, Zoom is slowing down. I've heard that too, Maria, that it's slowing down because of all these different things. And then one of the things that makes me hesitant about Zoom is that apparently people are hacking into people's stuff and just messing it up. It's called Zoom booming. The internet moves so fast. So I'll look into different options. There are other things other than Zoom. So I had other students email me other types of sites before I even knew what Zoom was. I think there are more gaming platforms for streaming. There are 40 people in IR class, but only like 10 people show up. Yeah, so your class would be better, especially if you get something out of it. And then yeah, I can also figure out how to do. I have Facebook, so I don't know if any of you have Facebook. I can give you guys my Facebook email, and then we could have a conference call or like an office hour like that too. That should be easier to set up. So I'll look into Zoom. I think it would be useful. Like I said, it would only work for your guys' class, the theory class, because you're all kind of engaged students, and even from your texting is a bummer, but just the things that you guys have in here are useful. So yeah, if I was like fancy rich, I could just have like a conference call set up and I could do this, and you're on line one, you're on line two. Many Republicans currently in office are not there for representation, but rather to reap most of the benefits. For example, budgets over the last few years have sought to reduce the funding for the social safety net programs that have provided substantial tax breaks and ultra wealthy. A more recent example would be the original proposal in the coronavirus stimulus for 500 billion of corporate bailouts exempted from oversight, which would have enabled the family and the powerful fuel disaster relief money in their own business. The legislation was ultimately passed and tried to fix the loophole. Yeah, so I think Maria, I think from things she said in class, and I think she's been very fair, has a distinct worldview, and that's fair. I would just say that I don't think it's just Republicans personally. I think Democrats are just as bad as Republicans because they're just politicians. They're not more virtuous or better people. And there's data to support that. I wish I knew this book, but basically, in studying some of this stuff, I think I shouldn't say things where I don't have the reference for you all. But basically, like, there are political scientists that have studied the behavior of Democrats and Republicans, and one of the things that they found was like they're all beholden to essentially like people with money, just different sets of people. So like bankers and billionaires, and so yeah, you can make that claim that Republicans want to support their base, but I'm sure if we come through the coronavirus stimulus bill, we would find things where Democrats were taking advantage. I know people talked about the Kennedy Center, but the one that really bothered me was during the Great Recession bailouts. Nancy Pelosi got like $12 million set aside for a bird sanctuary, which has nothing to do with like saving people from their houses, but that's what you call pork barrel spending, and it helps her look good in her district. And so again, I just think that's something all politicians do. And Maria, you're more than welcome to disagree with me. I could be wrong, but I'm just very dubious of political power in general. See, this is from Viviana. It says, there's always ways in which we aren't completely shifting far from this system of democracy. Our government is elected by the people, citizens, and vote for their preferred officials. This is where we choose, that's a good answer, who we want to be the representative for us. Although I say we do stray in certain ways from the big picture, having the ability to vote takes a huge part in democracy. Yeah, so I really like Viviana's point. It already passed 2.2 trillion. Yeah, I know it passed. And obviously the recession bill passed. There's a coronavirus bill. Yeah. Well, Aaron's answering a previous question. Yeah. So basically we should all be getting money. So yeah, that money passed, and so it does bail out corporations, but again, some of these are like small businesses. So again, like for whatever bad parts are in that, I don't think they would not have gotten passed if Democrats and Republicans didn't work together. So there are obviously good things in the bill too. And if you think that the Republicans got more negative stuff out of it, strategically also remember, like the House of Representatives is controlled by the Democrats. So if they didn't agree to it, it would not have passed. So that's more food for thought as well. So as to say, like, if the Senate is Republican and the House is Democrat, they both got in the stuff that they wanted. Otherwise, if it would be a more plausible argument if it was just Democrat or just Republican. I think. I don't know, or I'm wrong. And again, Viviana, I don't know if you're there or not, but I think your response was really good. So again, it seems like America definitely has problems, right? I think anyone that thinks America is perfect or God's gift to the world has issues. But what I think is fair is to say that we do vote, we do have free elections, we have oversight to make sure that they're as free as possible, that they're accessible as possible. And a lot of places in the world can't say that. So, yeah, I think Viviana's response is pretty good. Simple, straightforward. Those are always the best responses. Simple, straightforward, and really good. And it says, "Hi Maria, great discussion point. I like the positive tone everyone seems to be taking with regards to these. I strongly agree with you," Elizabeth says, "when you stated that there are several Republicans are currently in office mostly for benefits. Most Republicans care more about the rich than they do about the lower classes." Again, that's your opinion. I think a Republican would probably disagree with you. especially a politician. They only do things to benefit their people, the rich, and themselves. Although I would say I disagree with de Tocqueville when he interprets that one shall find an aristocracy if the one holding office does not find self-interest at heart. Self-interest at heart. One should be elected fairly if they are to be in office. Okay. So again, a lot of you don't seem to be fans of Republicans. That's cool. It's a bit longer. It's 44 after. All right, 15 to go. So I'm going to read your responses and respond to them. Ethan, Idris, and I think Lupita has a longer one. So I'll transition to talking about money is speech for the next 15, 20 minutes. So again, if you guys are more than welcome to jump off, I know the system is working. I really, really appreciate it. Looks like George has a pretty substantial answer. So does Manny. So I thought these were good. I'm glad they got in. I would have wished they came in a little sooner so I could have responded to them in real time. I tried doing that a lot of yesterday. So yeah, we might actually do this again since we're on this online format. So these are great. I appreciate the people sharing their personal views and being fair. They're not necessarily attacking things they don't like in an unreasonable fashion. They're clearly pointing to things like, hey, why are the rich getting benefits? I think that's fair. Like, the rich get benefits. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that's fine to take. So I'm glad you were all able to do this exercise and not attack each other. It's hard. It seems like many of us are passionate about this stuff. So that's great too. I don't want to discourage that. Yeah. So again, I've had students that get involved with the Democratic Party and go work for those politicians, and vice versa with the Republicans. So awesome. So I think we're done with that for today. So I'm not signing off. I'm going to stay live streaming. But again, if Lupita and Aaron and Maria, you guys want to jump off, or again, you can continue asking me questions because I don't think anyone's going to. Yeah, I think Maria, that's your homework. I think that's the intro to government homework. But the poli-sci 3 people, the poli-sci 3 people, we're doing this de Tocqueville stuff that's not for us. So I'm just checking stuff here. Yeah. So yeah, I think the intro to government poli-sci, political science 1, we're talking about freedom, or money is speech. Money is speech. So the people who already turned it in, is that what you were talking about? Yeah. Oh, Kewan signed in, it looks like. Hey, buddy. So I emailed you back. Hopefully it made sense. I don't know if it did or not. I joined, and we'll give a hard time in a second. However, I really did it. Oh yeah, so if the philosophical side, we can talk about more if you are interested in this stuff. Like I said, in terms of reading stuff, it depends on the kind of philosophy you enjoy. I would say if you, yeah, cool, man. I would say if you like American philosophy, then you need to read Rawls. I'm a Rawlsian, I guess you could say, or at least I'm very influenced by his work. And so John Rawls, it's manageable. So Habermas is this other guy, but he just has a lot because he's lived longer and wrote more. But you can get through the Rawls, and he's just very influential. A lot of people don't like Rawls, and that's why he's good, because there's all these really great responses to him, and he responds to that. And he's been dead since 1999, and people still talk and write about him. So that would be my personal suggestion, but it really depends on if you're more interested in the philosophy stuff. So again, maybe you would apply to a philosophy department than opposed to a poli-sci, even though you can do political philosophy in a poli-sci department. What am I trying to do here? I'm trying to bring up the homework. Sorry. Yeah, so you can do that, but I also feel like a lot of the philosophical training I have in epistemology and ethics and in metaphysics, and I'm not good at any of those things, right? I'm actually pretty terrible. My friend Hector's has his degree from the University of Buffalo in proper philosophy, but I feel like all those things make me a better political philosophical scholar. So when people talk about values and right and wrong. This is why, like, again, when I'm talking about, say, the Democrats and Republicans, I don't get as worked up because I just see them as opportunist politicians who want power and prestige and money. Philosophy with you. Yeah, so again, I would think you could just study stuff like that. So I don't know. So let's see how many people are in the room, the chat room. There's more people. I don't know why people aren't leaving. Leave. Go away. I feel like Lupita's just going to stay on and play Mario Kart and give me a hard time. But Ship of Fools? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I will, Aaron, my friend. I'll look at it. I just need time. But I like more books of that style, although I usually read more history stuff on my own free time. So David McCullough. Happy. I need Mario Kart, apparently. That's what I need. Okay, so again, I think for those of you in the theory class, Maria, you don't have to leave, Maria. It's fine, but you can if you want to. So yeah, the homework for the Intro to Government class is for today, actually, and this is taking the place of their lecture discussion. I'll probably just post these online for everyone and just give you like whatever the time. I'll find the time cues for them. But a lot of the intro kids, see you later. You don't need mental anguish. You just do it or not. That's why I do political philosophy. It's easy. You just make stuff up. And you just go like this, and then people think you're smart. So yeah, is money free speech? How does it impact the Democrats and Republicans making decisions in this country? And so for those of us in the intro class that are listening or are going to listen once this video gets posted, the purpose of this homework was to demonstrate how difficult the free speech issue is in the United States. And again, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert, but a lot of these things are much more accessible in a common sense way than you might think otherwise. So again, we have this key term that everyone needs to make sure they write down, which is the Citizens United, which was an interest group, or is an interest group, versus the Federal Election Commission. And so this kind of changed or reinstituted the money as speech argument, right? So this was a big deal. It's a very famous case. It comes up still. I think I posted videos for you guys in the notes for interest groups with the West Wing and these loopholes. And I think in the West Wing clip, it references the Buckley v. Vallejo case, which was something that was in our interest group chapter reading. I should have given you a test question on that. But again, you want to make sure you understand the Federal Election Commission versus Citizens United, or I got that backwards. And so I'm just going to go through the questions here for the next few minutes, and then see if there are any UCR people that have any questions, because they were all having mental breakdowns yesterday. Again, they don't know my sense of humor, and they definitely don't understand how Dr. Riley works, and Dr. Riley couldn't even do this. So even though some of us are criticizing me because they're not doing Zoom, I feel like this is pretty technical for me. Like, this is the most advanced technological thing I've ever done in my entire life. So I'm very proud of myself. So you can't take that away from me. So I'll just go through the questions on the homework PDF, or I guess it's a Word document. However you guys got it. And I'll basically answer the questions myself. And then, again, if you haven't done the homework, you're more than welcome to use some of my answers. But, again, construct your own homework using the format, right? So you're going to download it to Canvas. There should be a link up. I guess I should double check that. There should be a link up there. And, you can take as long as you want on one or two or all of these questions. It just needs to be about a page in length when you're answering this stuff. And the chat room's down to 3. People, you guys left me. So, yeah, still 3 people there. So is money or should money, I'm just going to go in sequential order or numerical order. Is money or should money count as free speech? Why or why not? And so The Citizens United case generally is interpreted as benefiting large corporations or rich people because um, they have a lot of money and so they can influence speech. And so you all know how they do that. They buy commercials, they buy people on social media, they build platforms. Russia has influences money and they can have fake news. And so there's really nothing stopping a rich person from doing that. Twitter has its bias, YouTube has its bias, and so that's all by the impact of money. But here, money actually means like constructing political ads. And so the main thing to take away from the Citizens United case is that it enabled the super PACs or super political action committees to form. And basically, there's no cap on the amount of money they can use with regards to facilitating speech or making commercials or being on radio or any of those things, right? And so what allows them to do that is that they do not coordinate directly with the politician with which they're supporting or the policy that they're supporting. But again, it's not rocket science to figure out what a politician wants because they have a website, they have a party platform, they say their beliefs on there, and so they might say President Trump's good because he believes in a wall. Vote for President Trump, paid for by citizens in support of the wall, right? There are rules with regards to knowing who's paying for this stuff, but again, like who actually gave the money to citizens for the wall? It could have been a rich billionaire, or it could have been even an enemy of President Trump that wants to make him look bad. Who knows? And so all these different things are why a lot of people say, well, money should not be part of speech because one, it biases people who have more money and have more influence, but also it can be more shady than that, right? You could make your enemy look bad or the person you're against look bad. So that's why money shouldn't perhaps be in speech. But again, why should it? Because moneyed interests are important interests, and so if I represent an important lobby or an important sector of the private sector, say the car companies or home builders or construction workers, then that organization might have a lot of money to go, hey, America needs to do this. Like, so with regards to the USMCA, the United States, Canada, Mexico, Canada Trading Act, like there are different people that are going to benefit from that. And so they want to get their voice out there and they want to spend a lot of money to tell Americans why something is good or bad. So again, if you listen to the past discussion on the last class, talking about some students weren't too keen on the Republican Party, something like Citizens United versus FEC actually benefits both parties, right? So unions can take advantage of this, and unions generally support the Democrats. They are a big organization. They take union dues. They take that money. They make advertisements to support unions, support Democratic candidates. And Republicans might do generally have more support from big corporations who want less taxes and less regulation, and they get to have their say, right? So it's fair with regards to the moneyed interests of both parties have a say. And that seems important because their interests are important. Unions are important and corporations are important. And so that might be why we would allow it, because it is fair in some sense. It's not rich people, it's just the rich that are both Democrats and Republicans. At least that's what I would argue. I'm not saying I believe that. And it's unfair because poor people are impacted, or not as rich people, middle class people, which again, you could be a Democrat or Republican and be middle class or not have as much money. So don't think of it as like the rich equals Republican and the poor equals Democrat. What I would say is that it's a better way of thinking about it is this law or this policy does benefit the rich if they're Democrat or Republican, and it gives less of a voice to the poor or the ones with not as much resource. Which, when we think of poor people, I'm poor, you're poor, but we probably don't think of ourselves as poor. I think of myself as poor, but you all probably don't think of yourselves as poor. I'm poor. I haven't eaten today. I'm very hungry. So I just keep refreshing to see who's in the board. The fact that anyone's watching this, I'm really stoked. So I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me ramble about stuff. Is it important to regulate speech at all? Who decides? So this is meant to be a question that if we were in class in groups, which you would not have been able to do anyways because of this coronavirus situation. This is one of those things where I was meant to be about money, but also about hate speech. And so again, I was talking about Mill earlier and hate speech and John Stuart Mill. And so the reason why it seems difficult is because everyone's going to have a different threshold or constitute what hate speech is. It doesn't seem like it's something that's very easily codified in law. And in places that have, like say in Canada or England, like it's just fraught with difficulties. And so I was watching The Tiger King on Netflix yesterday, and this lawyer was talking about how, he said, in this country, America, we don't regulate speech. We just sue for the consequences. And so we do that, right? So if I libel someone in writing, I say something false or hateful, or I slander someone, then someone can sue me, which is a way of a check on that kind of speech. But I'm not prevented from saying things prior to the fact. I can say awful things. I can say nice things. Like if I say I hate Donald Trump, isn't that hate speech? Didn't I say the words I hate someone? But a lot of you probably say that all the time, and probably would get upset if someone gave you a ticket for saying it, or you went to jail. And so what constitutes hate speech, who gets to regulate, is a problem. We think it would give generally people or a group of people too much power. And as a liberal democratic republic, we think that like John Stuart Mill was arguing for, it seems like you as an individual know better about what and how you want to say something. And you may bear consequences for that, but those shouldn't be consequences from the government, right? So liberals want protections from the government. Both Democrats and Republicans are liberals. But you might experience social consequences. So in your generation, you Gen Zers with your Instagrams and your YouTubes and your Zooms and your Snappy Chats, you have cancel culture. You go after the advertisers of people that are there. I'm here for the 2 o'clock stream. Yeah, so I'm just finishing up. I guess we're already at 2 o'clock. So I'm going to finish up with the intro to government, kids. So if you give me a few minutes, and then if you have any questions, who is this? Jack, if you can type your questions with regards to Poli-Sci 3 or 20 world politics, and I can answer them. Yeah, so if you guys have questions, again, I think I have the other video on our Blackboard page talking about our issues. But yeah, this is more of a test for me to see if this works. My other students from other classes all seem to think that Zoom is better, so I'll look into Zoom and see how that goes. But again, now you can see my face and see how I talk about issues. And so thank you. I appreciate your patience. I'm just a little bit behind. I started talking about this stuff. I'm using this since it's working as an impromptu lecture, I suppose. And if you want to talk about this stuff, you're more than welcome to as well. Citizens United's court case asserted that corporations and unions are legally persons. Should corporations and unions count as legal persons with whom free speech applies? So we're already kind of talking about that. Yeah. And I'm, Jack, I'm really behind on things in life in general, so this has definitely thrown a monkey into my wrench. So for the other students from Poli-Sci 1 at College of the Desert, what is the free marketplace of ideas as referenced by the Britannica excerpt? So cool. I think Maria was asking me that question, and so that kind of answers that. How does free speech contribute to it? Does free speech detract from it? How does money factor into the marketplace of free ideas? So again, money, I think, if I was answering this question, just allows people's voices to be louder and influence more people. So again, like, why do we listen to sports athletes and singers? Because they have a lot of money and they're on all these platforms all the time. And so we think that they have some kind of expertise when they're usually all idiots. And again, I think it's better to know with free speech, I think I said this before in my classes, that again, it's hateful and we don't want people to mock or belittle transgender people or us because of our ethnicity or our background. But by having free speech, then the idiot says the dumb thing and then we all know that person's an idiot. Right? So I don't have to hire that person. I don't have to engage with that person. And so, because a lot of, like, with your younger generation, using kind of like these very interesting philosophical frameworks would talk about, say, implicit bias. And so one of the actual benefits of free speech is, like, the implicit biases become explicit biases, I think. And so I think that's one of the things that many people want to avoid. I argue with my dad about this because we think about implicit and explicit biases differently. It's very fascinating. I think arguing is just, if you don't know my personality or mean, I just mean like an interesting conversation. We're not yelling at each other. And so hopefully a lot of us will have arguments with regards to the world politics stuff in a very kind of positive and constructive way, where My approach to teaching generally, for those of you who don't know me at all, is that I can learn as much from you as you might be able to learn from me. And so I try and be as open minded as possible and fair minded as possible within reason and acknowledging my own personal biases and prejudices. So if you're in the Poli Sci 20 class, I think, again, if I had a critique of Dr. Riley's, I don't think he does that, but I don't think he's a bad guy either. I think he's a really nice guy. He works really hard. He just doesn't care if he's kind of tilting the scale. And so it's okay if you disagree with him, and it's okay if you disagree with me. And the reason why I can say that is because I'll be doing the grading. So he might not like it, but I'm the one who gets to grade your guys' papers. In regulating political speech, specifically starting with campaigns, important, whereas it's not a concern with other issues. Yeah, so basically here the question was meant to be like, why is it that we want to regulate, say, political speech or political campaigning speech? And it seems like because I would argue, you know, it seems more important because these people wield power. They have political power. And so we want to know who's getting who money when, right? So if Putin is helping Trump, I want to know that, right? I want to know who gave him the money, where's the information coming from. But if, and so same thing, like if a company supports Joe Biden, I want to, well, maybe I don't like Joe Biden, so I don't want to support that company anymore. I think a classic example would be like, say, a lot of people don't like Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A. If you want to buy me Chick-fil-A, I will eat it. It's good. But they have political views that a lot of you might disagree with, and so you don't have to shop there. You don't have to give them your money. What are some of the benefits of having no limits on the amount of money that could be considered speech? Or to put it another way, what benefits are there in having unlimited amounts of money supporting certain kinds of speech? Again, I think I put that question there with regards to, say, like, not everything's politics. So it's like, if I wanted to get the message out there about coronavirus and staying home, like, yeah, like, why would I say a company can only give, like, say, $1 million for an advertisement? It's like, no, I want everyone to know they shouldn't go outside. They need to wash their hands. They need to wear a mask. So spend as much money as you need on advertising so that people don't freak out, right? So it's like, you all have enough toilet paper. Don't freak out, right? So putting limits on money isn't always a good thing, even though when we think maybe like with regards to politics, it might be. Like clearly about informing the public on coronavirus, it's probably not as good of a thing. What would, if any, some of the problems be of unlimited money as speech? Yeah, we could, I think we're on the same page there talking about that. Does money as speech favor any particular group? Are there any ways of combating this favoritism, if it exists? Does the social media factor? Yeah, so obviously rich people are benefited by having these kind of unlimited caps on free speech. But one of the arguments that's been going around for a while, and political scientists are always very romantic. So several years ago, there was this thing called the Arab Spring that seemed to be influenced by social media movements, right? So people on their phone, people on Instagram, combating censorship in China, is that though people with power, people with money can control the message, like your generation and even my generation has had the internet, and people will say things like, well, the internet's very democratizing, right? As long as you can get on it, somehow, get a cheap phone with some internet access, with Wi-Fi, you can put your message out there, you can share. And so if enough of you do that in this kind of democratic fashion, like people can know what's going on. But again, like for those of us that study politics a little more closely, like even that comes with its dangers. Again, I think your guys' cancel culture and things around that. And then again, like these videos of like, I think the only reason why everyone's fighting over toilet paper is because someone posted a video going like, everyone's getting toilet paper. Now everyone thinks they need toilet paper. I mean, you need it, but you can also go in the shower if an emergency happens. So food for thought. But that's the homework for my intro to government students. Again, this is also my live stream test for them. Yeah, so if you or anyone like Hewan, if or anyone else from the intro class wants to jump off now, you're more than welcome to. Hopefully that helped answer some of your questions. And again, that's kind of the test for that. So I can kind of open up the floor formally for the UCR students. Again, I'm stoked some of you guys found the link because Blackboard is not the best. It's what I'm finding out. It just doesn't let me like embed YouTube streams or feeds like that. I don't see any questions in my UCR email. So I'll just go over the class again unless anyone wants to type in a question that they might have. And the only reason that actually, I was not going to do this. The only reason why I decided to do it was because I was reading through the discussion boards that Dr. Riley had, and it seemed like a lot of students were freaking out about the same thing. Then they were responding to each other, and then Dr. Riley was kind of, like made 3 topics to respond to, which he was trying to do. And I don't think he could do it fast enough. No one could. It's not a criticism of him. So, yeah, like the floor is open. I don't know, Jack, if you had any questions, or Brian, if you're still there, or if you're just helping me test this. So, again, the fact that you're there, in fact, I'm going to write your guys' names down. Because I had a student earlier named Ashley jump on, and so, I don't have extra credit, but maybe if you need a brownie point here or there for something, I just really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. And again, if you have any suggestions, I'm guessing you're probably fans of Zoom if you've ever done it. I just haven't done it, and I'm trying to do a bunch of different things at once. So I doubt we do this again, unless, again, like if I get a bunch of questions, I can do it in live time. See you, bud. See you, Kewan. Thanks for helping me. Yeah, so we could do it that way. But again, I think a recording is actually a little easier, and then you can access it on your own time. Thanks, Ashley, if you're still there. Thanks for jumping back on. Yeah, no problem. We could do it this way with the Q&A, and I think if enough people want to do it, then maybe I will organize a Zooming session via sections. But it's you guys 3. So yeah, the brownie point. We'll call it the brownie point rule. And if you email me, hey, I need a brownie point here. Like if you're on the cusp of, like, say an A or a B, you're at 90, you're at 89.4. Okay, there's your brownie point. Yeah, so the expectations for sections. Yeah, I didn't like the discussion board either. Like I was following it, Jack. So it seemed like the people had a lot of questions. I think I don't have everyone's name memorized, obviously, but I think because I got my video out before the professor, and I haven't talked to the other TAs at all. I don't know those gentlemen really at all, but I don't think they had talked to their students at all either, given the amount of responses. But the main thing is, like, it's going to be read. I think my expectation in the class is, one, like Dr. Riley just kind of has this peculiar way of grading. So the main thing is, like, these papers. The professor responded to me, and I didn't see it until much later because for some reason it hid my own. Yeah, I saw that too. People were hidden. I don't know if you can hear me clicking on the board here. I'm sorry. Let's see, introduction video. And of course I can't find the syllabus. Who knows where it's at? But if I remember correctly, the papers are worth 26% or something like that. Regulate speech. That's not going to be it. Yeah, I don't know. The one thing I forgot to do. Okay. I'll write that down. Thank you. So yeah, for those of you here, the 3 or 4 of you that are here from my sections at UC Riverside, Poli-Sci 20, World Politics, I'll just go over my expectations again. And I had a few emails, people kind of concerned or like, this doesn't necessarily make sense. So give me a second to see if I can find who knows where that thing's at. I thought it was in here. Aha, it's next to my file for the class. Okay. So I'm just looking at the course syllabus. Yeah, so as I understand it, we have these 3 papers. They're 26%. Again, I have TA with Dr. Riley in the past. I think it was a Poli-Sci 5, political ideologies or something like that. Again, he's a really nice guy. Not to be mean, I'm fairly boring as well. I don't mean this to be a criticism. Not every professor is, jazz hands and a show. But I think he's fairly boring in real life. And so even though I don't think his posts were like the most entertaining, I think it like with me in my other classes where I'm teaching, where I'm the professor, it forces you to kind of discuss the material in a linear fashion so it's easy to follow. you do need to get this book at some point, I think. Again, I think someone put a post on there. I don't know if Dr. Riley deleted it, the PDF of the book. So maybe it's there for free still or not. It is an expensive book. Like I said, the school wasn't talking to me. Dr. Riley wasn't talking to me. So I went to campus and basically broke into my office, and this book just happened to be there. So I borrowed it from one of the other grad students. So I'll be reading the book, and so that's my expectation for gradings in the midterm is like make sure you're really, because we don't get to talk to each other, and are we submitting papers on Blackboard instead of in-class writing? Yeah, well, you would do that anyways, Ashley. So usually I personally like hard copy papers, but obviously that's not going to work given our infrastructure. So once we get the prompts and I remember how to use Blackboard, and I'll make an announcement, you will post a Word document through Blackboard, and it'll like make sure you didn't cheat. I don't remember what it's called. A lot of places it's called Riverside, but I can't remember what UCR calls it. And it'll make sure you didn't cheat or anything like that. And I will read your papers online and give you all a grade. But yeah, normally I am one of those people who likes to have a hard copy and I give it back to you. So again, a lot of things are just going to be unusual this quarter for us. You know, you're not going to get a lot of feedback on the papers because I don't have a paper to give back to you. Yeah, cool. So again, I think if you're everyone wants to make sure that you guys have a good experience and we don't screw you up. So the whole school is doing that, and I never have the interest in like failing people anyways unless you just don't do the work. And so if you're nervous or scared or concerned, like how's this going to go or how my grade's going to work, like everything is to your benefit. Like everyone's like giving anyone like, you know, a little extra break, a little extra patience. And so, and if they're not, they're being jerks and you should call them out on it. So really keep that in mind if you're not sure about stuff. Because as you already can tell and already figuring out, like I'm trying to figure out a live stream. Dr. Riley's trying to figure out how to do audio and his PowerPoint presentations. And so as long as you're reading and if you have questions, and that's again how I normally do sections anyways, is like who has questions? And then of course you've all probably, if you're not new, sitting in a section and no one has any questions. So normally I have my bucket of doom. I call people at random. Thank you. It is called Safe Assign. I just forgot what it was. So you'll submit that through Safe Assign, and I will grade the papers. Thanks, Jack. So what was I saying? I think I'm more like this in lecture 2. You can tell where I lose my train of thought. So we have these papers you'll read. The way I do papers is as I'm reading, I have a Word document open and I just have the page number and I write the quote beforehand. And so I think that would be a good tip or trick to use going forward, because then you can just open up your Word document, you're writing about the prompt, and you're, okay, here in chapter 3, the book, Frieden, Lake, and Schultz, they say this, and then it's from page 64. And then you just copy and paste it. So that way you don't have to go back through the book and have citation. You just have it there for anything. And a lot of times too, when you do that, it helps you remember instead of having to reread, because you focused on like the important citations and quotations as you went. So like I'll do videos. Again, I'll probably do recorded videos that I post to YouTube for each of the papers. So there's 3 meetings right there. You can watch them at your leisure during the week. That'll talk about the writing expectation, right? So the first one, I'll give you a general writing expectation. The second one, I'll talk about the problems of the first paper. The third one, I'll talk about the problems of the second paper. And so that way the writing gets better. If a grad student wasn't going to grade a little more easily, I think they'd be lying because of the circumstances. And again, like with regards to our participation, which is the motivating factor for us doing this live stream with, I just want to see how many people are here since we're 18 minutes in. It says 4 or 5. Been doing this for almost 2 hours, so that's fun. It's loading. Okay, there's 5 of you. I think one of those is me, so it's probably 4 of you. We're not going to do any kind of activity. You don't have to participate. I'm not going to check on you. Again, I will only do that if Dr. Riley mandates it or the school mandates it. So honestly, it sounds silly, but like I said in the other video, like those 18 percentage points are just yours. I'm still confused with Blackboard. Brandon, you just checked in. Yeah, don't worry about the discussion boards. Like I said, I'm not going to do them. The one that Dr. Riley did was confusing, and that's why I'm doing this. Brandon, since you're on here, I'm just writing your name down for brownie points. Like I said, if you're ever on like some situation where you're at 89.4% and you need that 0.1% to get an A, this is your extra credit brownie point. Yeah, like the discussion boards would be, I think, a little more easy if I did them. I'd give you a question and you would respond, and that's it. My brother, there's different tactics for online teaching. Generally, online teaching is meant to be at your pace. And so these kind of like even doing Zoom or doing things are unusual, although I know you can do Zoom as participation where professors will do it. My friend just did this where he Zoomed for his teaching credential, and like he had to sign on, he had to do it, and it's like, okay, you're there. You get credit. That's not good. That's not how I do participation in class. You need to actually participate, say something, have a question, and so that's where a discussion board, more properly formatted, Brandon, would come in. You'd have a question, you'd respond, and you participated. I had the live stream's been on there for an hour. If you go back to the beginning, around 20 minutes in, like I had my other students from College of the Desert do a discussion board, and I just went through and talked about their discussion board like this. That was it, right? So don't worry about the discussion board too much. Like I said, as long as you read and turn in papers, you're going to get credit for participation. Is how again, unless Dr. Riley makes me change my mind or the school. I can't see any of you guys, the students, complaining, but you'd be surprised. So there might be a student who goes, well, that's not fair. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to lecture on his lectures, and that just seems weird to me, and I don't know how I keep track of all this participation. So, that's hopefully that alleviates some concern. If you know anyone else in the class and they don't understand what I'm going to do, again, what the other TAs are going to do is going to be different. If I had to guess, just kind of knowing the kinds of grad students at UC Riverside, they're probably also freaking out, and they're going to make all their students do a bunch of extra work. Why? You guys are probably doing 3 or 4 other online classes. Take the win. And again, the only way we wouldn't take the win of just getting the points is if someone wants to make my life harder, and the only person who can really do that is Dr. Riley. So I don't know. If you just don't want the points, then I don't have to give them to you, I suppose. But that's pretty much it. Again, I don't know. I don't see any other questions popping up. I don't know, Brandon, if you're still there, if that made sense, you can tell me if it didn't or not. But again, we need this book. The articles, I posted them all up on there. So if you don't have a VPN or you don't want to buy the Foreign Affairs magazine, you don't have to. They should all be accessible on the course materials page of our section page. So again, I think the little I know of how Dr. Riley's going to teach this class is like it's essentially very much like an intro to international relations and these kind of international problems and features. Like he said, he's pretty prestigious guy. The schools he went to and the people he studied with, so he definitely knows the material. But the thing to keep in mind is he definitely has a worldview. And so with regards to how I will grade papers, like I want you to be as objective as possible. It's okay to go like, well, I don't like the America for doing this, or I do like America for doing this, but you just need to have reasons, and the reasons are going to have to come from the book, not your opinions, basically. Yeah, so we're just kind of addressing these kind of like litany of issues, ranging from cool, but I appreciate the feedback. But let me look at some of this stuff. Well, I guess I just look at the chapters then, because he doesn't have the chapters listed. But if we go on to the book, looking at the headings, we have War and Peace. We'll just go from the beginning. So I think we're on chapter 1 for today, or tomorrow. Let's see. 3:30, we're supposed to be intro, chapter 1, chapter 2. So Cold War, just kind of like famous global issues, understanding interests, interactions, and institutions. He talked about civil and incivil, whatever the hell he was talking about in the video, his MP3, domestic politics and war, international institutions and war. So war obviously today is a big feature of international relations, which makes sense, right? That there's a lot of costs and burdens and fear of war. Yeah, Henry Kissinger. I didn't even know that. And I've known Dr. Riley for a little bit and taught with him before. Um, International finance, international monetary relations. And so we'll go through this material. I would say focus on key terms, know what they mean. And then again, I think what I could do in terms of like lectures that, again, you can get participate on there. I think the better online formula is like at your own speed. Maybe once a week on a Friday or a Saturday, I look at all the emails I get and I can make a video and answer them like this as opposed to emailing everyone back. So if I only get like 2 or 3 emails a week about the book, I can just email you back. If you have a more substantive question, which I imagine a lot of you might have, then I can make a video. And again, I could make it where it's like you have to watch the video, you have to leave a comment, and then I'll give you a percentage point. But it's like I'm teaching consistent. The way I teach in person is the same I teach online. You're all adults. Just seeing the responses of how much people cared about the discussion boards and if they didn't work, just shows like that quality of a UC student that you all are. Other places you teach in, you can't even get the students to do a very simple thing, and you all went out of your way to like click online and go onto the discussion board and watch my video. I can see basically everyone in the class watched the video from the other day. Left leaning, I'm surprised he got along with Kissinger. Well, again, you can study with people that you don't agree with. I think if you follow regular politics, apparently Ben Shapiro is kind of like a right-leaning pundit, I guess. I don't know. I don't really watch that stuff. But he had classes with Elizabeth Warren at UC, at Harvard Law. So I don't think you could get too different than that, right? Like a very liberal person running for president and like a famous pundit on YouTube, I guess. I don't know. They were more civil times. Yeah. So I think that civility is something I'm striving for, Jack. That's pretty much it. So I think I'm good. Unless anyone has any particular questions right now, it's a delay on the YouTubes. But yeah, that's kind of my approach to teaching and the class. And like I said, I'll probably post videos of questions and more substantive questions that I might get and do like 20, maybe 10, 20, 30. It's surprisingly easy to talk longer than you might think. Like I said, I've been doing this for 2 hours. Will you announce date and times for the next discussion? Yeah, if I do one, I'll announce a time and date prior to me doing it. That I won't just do it like this. And like I said, Ashley, it'll more than likely be you don't like Ben who? Shapiro. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't care. More power to you. But all my point was like, him and Elizabeth Warren were teacher student. So yeah, to your point, it's a funny thing too. You could see from the I think 1980, if you want to see a presidential debate. So you see like the Hillary Trump presidential debate and the Ronald Reagan George H.W. Bush debate, and it's like you would think you're on a different planet. Like the way they talk to each other, it's like wow, like culture and politics and things have changed. So you're right. Back to Ashley's question. Sorry. Will you announce a date and time for the next discussion? Yeah, I will. Like I said, I think I'll generally just try and do these more recorded things where I answer questions. But yeah. Thanks, buddy. I don't know if this one's faster or slower. Let's see. That's different. Like I said, I'm still getting comfortable with this whole live stream situation. If it's fast or slow, I don't know. But yeah, I'll post the discussion boards. Again, I don't see doing the digital discussion board. So again, we could do it like this. Or I think given how slow this is, and I think again I had other students from College of Desert talk about Zoom. So I was planning on looking into doing Zoom. I just have to get caught up. So give me a break. Really give Dr. Riley a break. I know he's doing his best he can. He's a really responsible, well-meaning professor. He wants you guys to learn and do well. Yeah. So maybe Zoom is in our future, but for now, I'll just kind of do Q&A responses unless we keep coming into questions or concepts that are just too difficult to do like that, or the nuance. Like I think I read one of the responses where on his discussion board yesterday, where a student did say they wanted someone to lecture over the lectures, and I'm like, I don't know, it just seems weird. So we are lacking that kind of like in-person thing. I think there are benefits of being in person. If you're a motivated student, you can ask your questions and really get a better understanding. There's obviously just this delay here that we have to contend with. And then I think what we can do too, actually, if you're one of these students that really wants to like make sure you're getting it, is again, we can do FaceTime or do a Zoom where we do like a conferencing thing. Or I think Dr. Raleigh gave out his phone number. I think I would do it where I would call you guys through Google Voice, and we can talk about that way. So if you want to set these things up, don't be afraid to ask or inquire. I'll let you know. But they're paying me to help, to be the TA, and so I will do my job as best I can. And I would imagine things change, so be prepared for that. But again, I think don't worry so much about it, because I think the school and the professor and me want to make everyone's lives, for ourselves and for you, as easy and as enjoyable as possible. Again, maybe you'll end up liking online classes and just take online classes, or maybe you'll like, no, I really like in-person classes, and you'll see that difference. So I'll give it a few seconds if there's any questions. Yeah, 2:30, I think that's pretty good on my end. And then we'll close the session, I guess, if I can figure out how to close it. So as I'm minimizing things and closing things, I'll just reopen stuff for myself. I'll just wait for a Q&A. Otherwise, you guys can sign off. We're pretty much done. Yeah, so I'll just wait for a question. If not, I'll see everyone later. All right, buddy. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it, Brian. I'm just closing my stuff. Buying y'all some time to type if you're typing. All right. Now, ending this thing might be different than starting it, but I'm going to try and end it now. So email me if you have any questions, if you couldn't get it in. And it was nice talking to everyone. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me and help me figure this out. So it's commendable. Thank you so much. So see you all later.